I think, like many of us, I've spent the last year with a lot of classes, a lot of meetings, a lot of student supervisions happening online. I was lucky I was able to go onto the campus for one day a week in the build up to Christmas 2020. And I think starting maybe in the springtime here, I'm going to be able to go back onto the campus for a day a week. But most of my classes have been online. I don't know how you've been finding it, but I definitely think that using the technology day in, day out, I've developed some kind of tips and tricks that work for me to make things a little bit easier. So in this video, I thought I would share them. Thank you very much for this video suggestion in the comments. Please do add in the comments what things that you've been doing to help with your kind of online academic work and whatever job you're working in and how things have gone digital. So for me, okay, the breakdown of things that I now do that make my life that little bit easier when I'm teaching or working online. Okay, the first thing that I definitely do is I am quite conscious about what apps are running on my laptop when I start like a live session. So inevitably I end up sharing my screen because I want the class or the group to be able to see a lecture notes or to be able to see some kind of seminar notes I put together. So I tend to minimize everything else. So I turn off my emails, I close down any other apps that are running, I shut down any other documents, just to make it that bit easier so that when I share my screen, I'm less likely to share something that I don't want to share. I think when we first started working online, because I wasn't having to travel between meeting rooms, I was putting meetings too close together, and I wasn't allowing myself time to switch from one meeting to another meeting. So like at the university, if there were two meetings, usually I'd have to leave a 15-minute gap between them so I could walk between the various rooms. It would give me time to get a coffee or a cup of tea. And I think with the meetings being virtual, it was too easy to have them back to back. So I now try to spread out my meetings a bit, and I also try to make sure that I've got at least some half days in the week where I haven't got planned Zoom calls or meetings or classes, so that I can actually kind of get on with some other tasks without having my kind of live sessions running in the background. I also, I think, change my behaviour depending on the size of the class that I'm working with. So I've noticed that when I do my one-to-one PhD student supervision meetings, quite often we're not looking at the camera. So I'll be chatting to my student and actually I'll be talking like this because often I am looking at a second screen that has all the data on it, has the kind of whatever article we're working on together. And I find that quite a nice, relaxed style of teaching. You're like having a conversation with the person, but you're not staring at the person all the time. And I think that's quite useful in a one-to-one chat, to be able to feel comfortable enough to look at second screens and then to go back and talk to the person that you're kind of working alongside. When I've got seminar groups, so when I've got say 4 to 6 students, I really encourage the students, if they can, to share their webcams, and if it looks like we're all in quiet environments, to share our microphones, because I think actually that makes it much more like a classroom. It's much easier to have a conversation if you can see the people that you're talking to and if they feel able to kind of ask questions and to kind of respond. But that only tends to work for the smaller sessions. When I get to class sizes of 30, and actually one of my current MSc groups, that's a kind of that level, I've got 30 students in that class. Again, I try to encourage people to turn on their webcams, but I know not everybody can or will want to. But we tend to keep our microphones on mute in those larger groups and then just turn them on when somebody wants to say something or ask a question, because then that stops that kind of feedback, the mic feedback that sometimes you get. And then I've also had online class where I've been giving a lecture to 100 plus students. And in those situations, quite often I won't see any of the students at all. They'll either have all their cameras turned off, or sometimes the software won't allow me to see the student faces. So then you're pretty much just talking to the camera. And, I think in those situations, I just try to remember that there is an audience watching. And even though I can't see them, they are out there somewhere in the ether watching what I am saying. So yeah, I definitely change my behaviour depending on the class size that I'm teaching. I'm quite conscious that we all watch these online recordings and live streams on different platforms. So, sometimes people will be watching the lecture or the session on a huge TV monitor. And then sometimes you might be watching it on a tablet or a smaller smartphone screen. So I try to make sure that any slides that I'm using don't have details that are just too small. So if you're watching it on a smaller screen, it's still comfortable to see all the detail and make it a bit nicer for the person kind of watching that material. One of the really good tools that I have, and that I definitely would not want to give up, so the university, you're not going to get this back off me until we're back in the classroom properly, is my visualizer. So the university bought us all bits of equipment depending on our teaching and what we were doing. And one of the things I requested was a visualizer, and it's the best thing ever. So basically I can handwrite and it will show in real time to the students who are watching the class. I also use it maybe to share like diagrams or extracts from books. I used it when I wanted to record a handwritten derivation for an online recorded lecture. Basically, I really, really, really like having a visualizer. I think not having had one would have made teaching online so much harder. I know all my academic colleagues have their own preferences for how we teach online. Some people like handwrite on tablets and share the tablet screen. Some people like to handwrite their notes and then use like webcams to zoom in on their notes. I am definitely a big fan of having a visualizer. So yeah, that's my number one new piece of kit in order to make online teaching better. Well, at least for me, it makes my job easier. I try to use the technology to its full. So I try to use like the voting buttons. I try to use the chat window. I really like the chat window, especially if students want to ask questions during the class. Sometimes if they write them in the chat window, then actually another student will answer the question before I get to answer the question. So that can be a really good way of getting some dialogue going. I also use the chat window quite a lot if somebody hasn't got their video or can't get their video to work or their audio's playing up. But yeah, I found online teaching in the main to be pretty good fun. The students have been great. Yes, there's been disasters, things have gone wrong. I've plugged things in the wrong order. I wasn't able to share a screen. I've frozen at silly times. All that stuff happens, but it's happening to all of us. So I don't tend to get hung up on it. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you find online teaching and online classes. Do you enjoy them, or are you itching to get back onto the campus? As I said, I think I'll be back on the campus a little bit over the months ahead, so just for very short controlled sessions. But then hopefully, if things are able to relax a bit more in the summer, we'll see where we are. But yeah, in the meantime, I think I will be staying digital for a little while longer. So take care of yourselves, have a good week. If you're new, thank you so much for joining this channel. I'm Caroline, I'm a UK University physics lecturer, posting every Monday at the moment. So do click the like button, the subscribe button, leave me a comment. I love reading the comments. I've got a cool video coming up next week addressing one of the comments and the suggestions. So anything you'd like to know a little bit more about university life, do let me know. But take care of yourselves. Enjoy all your virtual classes, teaching and meetings, and I'll see you next week. Bye.